Hello, I'm Jemima, a library assistant at New College. The subject of this Curators Choice video, MS-287, a small and relatively unassuming manuscript, was actually created for Henry VIII himself and as such was destined for his royal library. The writer, Bernard André, describes the manuscript as a Novi Anni Munusculum, or a small gift for the new year. New Year's Day was the main gift-giving occasion at Henry's court, and he regularly received books, many of which ended up in his extensive royal library. So this manuscript was a personal gift, designed and written for the king by one of his court poets, and given to him at New Year 1515. The text itself is a discourse on the question of whether peace is better than war, bellum ne paci ane contra bello pax preferatur, and argues in favour of peace. Given the context of the Anglo-French treaty of the previous year, which ended a war between England and France, it's difficult to believe that the work does not have a political element. In other words, it can hardly be a coincidence that André privileges peace over war in his gift to the king. The text begins with a beautiful illuminated initial, a C, containing a Tudor rose and a crown, highlighting the royal provenance of the manuscript. You can see the red rose for the House of Lancaster, Henry VII's family, combined with the white rose for the House of York, brought together when Henry VII married Elizabeth of York, the daughter of Edward IV. Given that the reign of the Tudors began with the end of the Wars of the Roses, this rose is significant not just as a symbol of the Tudor royal house, but as a symbol for Henry VII's, and thus Henry VIII's, right to rule as a legitimate successor to the throne in uniting the two sides of the war. As with many manuscripts, this wasn't the work of one man. Bernard André, in fact, was blind, and it is therefore highly likely that a scribe wrote the text itself for him. It's also likely that a separate craftsperson, an artist, would have drawn this illuminated initial later in the production of the manuscript, after the scribe had left a gap for it. Although this manuscript may not look as impressive as you might expect a royal gift to be, it's worth remembering that by 1515, printing culture had begun to spread rapidly through Europe, and change the way that manuscripts were valued. The fact that this item is handwritten is testament to the work that went into producing it, and therefore is testament to its value. Furthermore, you can see on this page, and throughout the manuscript, that the paper, which was much more expensive than now, is not used very sparingly. There are relatively few words on a page. The script is neat and mostly legible, and there are no mistakes in the writing. All these things are signs that the manuscript was a gift intended for a wealthy recipient. Bernard André was born at Toulouse around 1450 to 1452 and came to England in 1485, when he recited some verses to celebrate Henry VII's victory at Bosworth Field. Not much is known about him before this date, except that he was an Augustinian friar and that he likely became known to the future King Henry VII during Henry's exile in France. After arriving in England in 1496, he was appointed as the tutor of Prince Arthur, the elder brother of Henry VIII, who died before he became king. This is how André became involved with the inner Tudor court. Subsequently, in 1500, he was asked to write a life or biography of Henry VII. As the poet laureate and royal historiographer, this was the peak of his career. After the deaths of Arthur and Henry VII, André's popularity declined, although he continued to write for Henry VIII until his death. The date of this is uncertain, but his last literary output was in 1522, so it's assumed he died shortly after this, exactly 500 years ago. Unfortunately, we have very little information regarding how this manuscript arrived at New College, but we do have two other books from, or at least intended for, the Royal Library. One of them, known as the Mary Binding, has Mary I's name stamped on its upper board and came to New College in the middle of the 17th century. Perhaps closer to MS-287, this manuscript came from Henry VIII's library. Again, you can see his name here. It's possible that MS-287 came to New College by the same route as one or both of these books, but we have no way of knowing this yet.